Well, I wonder if really that if you're loving, so supposing we're partners, and you're loving your God and I'm loving my God, and they're not the same, but if we're really putting our God first, we quite quickly come to a very similar view of God to each other's view, so that the way we're then treating each other is actually very good. I mean, I suspect better than if we just loved each other but didn't know God. Our gods in this case, if they're distinct. Do you see what I mean? That any person that's devoted to their God is likely to end up quite quickly with such truly godly qualities, rather similar to anyone else who's devoted to their God. I mean, I find lovely family people among Christians, secular people, marginal denominations, or whatever you like to call them, sects like the Jehovah's Witness, or well, you name them. There's lots of them out there, isn't there? The Mormon group and so forth, and other religions. I mean, Islam. I know some lovely families. Hindus, Sikhs. They're just the ones I've had contacts with that I'm rolling off, aren't they? I mean, I don't find their loving kindness alien to mine. And I mean by that the loving kindness they exercise towards others. Certainly towards me anyway, from my experience. So even if one partner doesn't, well, if one partner of the two is not following their God earnestly, I'm less hopeful, because a non-godly path, a non-God following path, your God, if you're not following your God, but you're following some transitory, hedonistic, is it called, pleasure max, present pleasure max at that, taking no concern for others and so on, it's not going to make a good marriage, is it? I mean, I'd be far more hopeful about two people that both love their God earnestly, that they'll treat each other pretty good, since their true values very quickly will be found to be very similar. I mean, we're human facing uncertainty, and even if the cultures are different, the basic human needs are still the same, and the same understanding, aren't they? That's sort of my experience anyway. What do you think? So I'm not really saying, oh, well, goodness, you're not both loving the same God, you better give up. My view has always been, well, if she, my wife, finds it really that bad, I guess she'll go. And they do. I mean, I've lost 3 wives. But, one after the other, I mean. Not as bad as it sounds. Well, I don't know, it's not good, but anyway. I've been into the details elsewhere. I won't go into them again here, right? But I have noticed in each case that they become decidedly unreligious before they at least outwardly decide to leave. In other words, in some sense, now it may be a practicality that, for instance, you can't be going to church and divorcing your husband, unless, of course, you can convince the church that he's an absolute scoundrel, of course, and then, the church will understand, So it may be a strategic thing that, of course, they give up religion first because they're not going to get any support from the church in pursuing a divorce situation instead of a reconciliation. And they don't want a reconciliation, you see. And no doubt they would argue from their own point of view for very good reasons, And preferably something that the world will buy as valid in some way. Which can be extremely difficult if the person's not obviously horrible, But I've taken the view that I don't divorce. That's the end of the matter. I'm not divorcing. If they divorce me, well, I can't do anything about that. I've done what I can to try and keep it together. But that may not always be a viable strategy because you might be faced with someone who becomes horrendously evil towards you for whatever reason it might be. They're on drugs or drink or madness or it's not a word that's used, these psychological problems, all right? That are irrational. Oh yes, that's right. You may have to, for the safety of yourself or the kids or whatever, you may have to be the person who actually initiates the, if you like, divorce proceedings. Yep, I guess so. Well, this is all very sad, and we're not sort of focusing on whatsoever's good and lovely at the minute, are we? Let me see if I can return to such. Hang on. Well, I suppose it has, in a way, hasn't it? If you're being divorced because it really is necessary in the circumstances, well, that is a blessing. In some ideal sense, you would like, of course, the marriage to have been as lovely as you hoped when you first committed yourself. But we trust God in the situation that He has allowed it to good, despite what culture or church, religion or whatever may think and anticipate. And it's better to trust Him with all your heart, all your being, than to remain in great risk. Basic principle is that difficulties arise to make you rethink. Have I got it right? What should I be doing? Obviously, you try to put it right in the circumstances. And if you can't, and it's too wrong, well, perhaps it's right that you move away. It's really all we can say, isn't it? I turn it back on itself. Whichever decision you make, you're going to trust God for it. Because if you can't trust God for the decision you make, well, you're wrecked before you begin, aren't you? It's trusting God that counts, not making the right, quotes, decision. He is well able to deal with your mistake, if it is a mistake. And if he allows you to make such a mistake, because he loves you. Thank you, Dad.